Hello, and thank you for accepting my presentation. It is called Breaking Down the Wall, Patients and Families' Experiences of Multifamily Therapy for Young Adult Women with Serious Eating Disorders. My name is Berit Brinchmann, and I'm a professor at Norway University and Nordland Hospital. And the project I'm presenting today is from my work at the hospital. I have accepted and published 2 papers from this study. The first one is called An Aristotelian View of Therapist Practice in Multifamily Therapy for Young Adults with Severe Eating Disorders. But today I'm going to talk about the patients and the family's experience of such multifamily therapy. It is known through research that both patients and families in this group suffers a great deal. It is a very, very serious illness, and it makes a great impact both on the parents, on siblings, and on the patients themselves. And that is why the Nordland Hospital in the northern Norway has developed a program to help the families of these adult patients. And this is a picture from one of the exercises in such a program. So what is multifamily therapy? As I said, it has been developed in Nordland Hospital in Bodø, and multifamily therapy in itself is not very special. It's done a great deal of that both in Norway and in other countries. But what is special here is that this is a program for families of young adults, which usually don't have a lot of offers. And this program in Nordland Hospital in Bodø has been in continuous development since 2007. The model includes family members, and 6 to 8 families participate, each with a young adult family member suffering from a serious eating disorder. These take an active part in multifamily therapy over a 12-month period. The multifamily therapy incorporates interventions and exercises drawn from many different theoretical models, principally psychodrama, systemic family therapy, collaborative therapy, mentalizing-based therapy, mindfulness, multifamily therapy for psychosis, and cognitive therapy. And it uses a variety of group settings, large groups of the patients and family members together, and smaller ones, for example for mothers, fathers, siblings, and young women with eating disorders. And various interventions including role play, family mapping, and sculpts and other creative work. Both psychoeducational and clinical group work sessions focus on relevant and important themes including relationships, communication, conflict management, interactivity, motivation, and feelings of guilt. The research design of this study was a grounded theory design. Qualitative methodology was used, data collection and analysis in parallel, different coding techniques, memo writing, open and selective coding. I myself did altogether 120 hours of field observations in 2 multifamily therapy groups, together with both group and individual interviews with the participants, which were the young women and their family members. And these data were collected between 2015 and 2017. And as I said, And this fieldwork was carried out with me being present in the multifamily therapy groups as a participatory observer, writing contemporaneous field notes while I was taking part in the group activities on more or less the same basis as the other participants. So all my notes were written in notebook like this. And I didn't write notes when I was in the group, but after different sessions. We also had some co-authors or co-researchers with us in this project, and that is persons with lived experience as patient or parent. And these are our co-authors. One of them has been a patient and one of them is a mother of a young woman with a serious eating disorders. So what did we find? I will now present to you some of the findings together with some field notes and some quotes from the participants. I was present as a researcher in a family group in multifamily therapy. Using Playmobil figures, each family member was to show the others how they experienced the situation in their family. The young woman with an eating disorder placed the eating disorder, a skeleton, in the center of the table. She put her siblings at the far end of the table together with a little dog. Mom and Dad were put far apart from each other. They were divorced. It's my fault that the family is destroyed, she said, crying. Everything would have been better if only I were dead. Her father turned to me and said, "You have to keep hold of that. Now you really got to see how things are for us." And this is a picture of some of them. Playmobil figures, and all the girls had to make their own picture of how they looked at their eating disorder. And Frank Bernard says a picture is worth 10,000 words. The participants' main concern were found to be how they could overcome isolation and feeling of loneliness and disconnections in the families. And how did they do that? With connectedness and recognition, breaking down the wall, and opening up and sharing. Connectedness and recognition. A quote from a mother. The first meeting of the mothers group, we sat in our group, and as soon as we sat down, I began to cry. I was totally unprepared for that because I do not cry easily. It was a shock, but at the same time it was a signal that I had now come to some people who a strange experience, as I felt I wanted to scream. And I think that it was because I realized that at last there were people who understood what I was talking about. I understood that there was a truth in that you said that you understood what I was talking about. And it was quite liberating, good and bad at the same time. We think that it is only us who are going through this, but it is really not so. I don't have to go around and take it all on my shoulders. It was fantastic. It was moving. There were family histories. We became just like one big family, and everyone opened up. The therapists know a lot, but still can't have the same understanding of our problems as do the others who have exactly the same problems. You have the feeling that they don't quite get what you're talking about, even though they know a lot about it. It's plain and simple just not possible to understand the pain of an anxiety without having been there yourself. And this is a picture of one of the exercises. They tried to make a picture of how the eating disorder looked for themselves. And this is, of course, in Norwegian, but it says, it hurts, it is dangerous, I'm alone, I'm scared, and all bad things about the eating disorders. The next finding is called breaking down the wall. This is a long quote from a father. Before we started in multifamily therapy, it was just as if there was a wall between her and us in relation to the disease. But then something happened in the multifamily therapy, which meant that the wall was broken down a bit. You knew what we could talk about, have some shared experiences around the illness that we could speak about, because we have been so scared. Am I crossing a boundary here if I say, or is it something I mustn't say? You become very watchful. This wall really set a limit in that she didn't really know what to say to us, because we didn't really understand what this wall was all about. And so you sit on the other side of the wall, afraid that if you say this or that, it might be wrong. Or there again, maybe smart. You sit and wonder what to do. Should you try to tempt her with something? Should she get something if she does it? You sit there like a question mark, and you don't start to climb over the wall, because you don't know what awaits you on the other side. So that was something that they did in this multifamily program. They tried to break down the wall a bit. And doing this, they did a lot of exercises, and I can't explain it very much here, but you can read about it later. This is an exercise called Tower of Guilt, and because it is a lot of guilt in these families, and they had to write stories about guilt, and if they felt a lot of guilt, they put it on red paper, and not so much on green or yellow papers. And after they had done that, they put all these papers on the floor and made a large tower of it, and then everybody went all around and looked at what the others had written. Terrible things about this feeling of guilt. And afterwards, the families discussed what to do with this tower of guilt. And in this particular group, they made a ball of it, and one of the fathers took some scissors and put through it. And then they went out in the garden and burned the tower of guilt. Quite dramatic exercises, showing that guilt it's not so good, and it's nobody is to blame of having these eating disorders in the families. Next finding is I called opening up and sharing. And we have seen before that they, for example, used Playmobil figures to make pictures of the family situation. And here I quote a young woman with the eating disorder. We set them up in such a way that we could see ourselves and the family, who stood close by and who stood far away, and which way the faces pointed. A light came on for everyone, how we saw things very differently, but also very much the same. I like that. Lovely to do something other than just sit and talk. And here we have some more examples of how they made figures of the eating disorder. Opening up and sharing. The young women with eating disorder were asked to write by themselves some keywords about what their life would be like without an eating disorder. Then they shared between themselves about the words they had written down, and the conversation flowed much more easily. In the plenary group, the therapist improvised. I have agreed with the young women that we will exploit the good atmosphere in our peer group and share with everyone else in the large group. The other participants can ask the young women concrete questions and they will tell you what we have talked about. It turned out to be a good, concrete conversation, neither philosophical nor theoretical. The mothers described powerful shared feelings with a lot of tears and crying, with them all on the same wavelength. They also found relief together with the other mothers who had many of the same feeling as them. I could start a sentence, and another of the mothers could finish it for me. Some of the fathers said that it was especially valuable for them to talk to the other fathers in the fathers group. There the fathers could speak about their issues without the mothers present. Multifamily therapy led to aha experiences as well as giving structure to chaos. One of the fathers spoke of his loneliness and frustration when outsiders asked how it was going with his daughter. The answer was often that it was not good with her, but those who had asked had neither the time for nor the possibility of fully grasping the situation. It struck a chord with the other fathers when he said, somewhat humorously, I have a standard answer. It depends on how long you have. Do you have 5 or 6 hours? The siblings said that they found it good to meet and talk with other siblings because there were things that they didn't want to discuss with their parents. It was also helpful to see their parents together with a sister in the multifamily therapy. Nonetheless, difficult feelings could be brought up and participation in multifamily therapy, good and bad at the same time. It is hard being there, my heart gets heavy and I get to know things that are unpleasant. But it has made me much more secure, and I take part for the sake of my sister. And one of the young women put it this way. I believe that multifamily therapy has been the most important thing in getting well. I learned that it is important to say what you are feeling, learn to speak, and when the family understands more, it's better equipped to be supportive, so that you don't have to do the work of getting well completely by yourself. It is so good. We wouldn't have the relationships we have in the family if it hadn't been for multifamily therapy. Guaranteed. And this is a nice picture of breaking down the wall. There is quite a bit of studies on eating disorders, but maybe not so much qualitative studies. And I found this very interesting article in Journal of Eating Disorders. And it argues that we really need stories of people living with severe and enduring anorexia nervosa. And I think this article on breaking down the wall is a contribution to some more stories. And here are some more references. And finally, my dog in the home office during Corona time. Thank you for listening.